The ProVelo Super League is a new pathway to the highest level of world cycling. It's giving the winner of the men's under-23 category an opportunity with a star-share stint in the Jayco Ulula team. And for the winner of the women's in the under-23s, next year they get a 12-month contract with the Live Ulula development squad. It's a new pathway to the highest level of the sport. One Australian rider who took an unusual way to get to the top of the sport. He was a late starter. He went through the Zwift Academy and he's gone on to win the King of the Mountains classification at the Vuelta to España. I'm speaking, of course, of Jay Vine. I'm Matt Keenan, and I'm looking forward to hearing Jay's story. Hey Jay, welcome to the podcast Road to the World Tour. This is an attempt to try and give the next generation of Australian cyclists an idea of how they can make it to the World Tour. You've been a winner of the King of the Mountains classification at the Vuelta to España, amongst other things. But if you didn't have an opportunity like this with the Zwift Academy, you might not have made it because that window might have closed. It's tough to get there from Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Matt. Yeah, like you said, the Zwift Academy really did give me that shot into the European ranks, coming from Australia. As you know, I think I was 25 at the time. It really was my last shout to try and get myself to Europe, out of amateur racing in Australia, because it's just not really looked at all across there.
You had a lot of going against you. 25 years of age, we had COVID, we had the lockdowns, you couldn't travel. And I've often referred to the fact that your teammate, Tadej Pogacar and Remco Evenepoel, they've spoiled it for every other 25-year-old. If you haven't made it by the time you're 20, you're almost washed up.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we've just signed Pablo Torres for a 6-year deal at the age of 19. So yeah, if you told me at 19 that, hey, well, lots of people did tell me at 19, you didn't hop on a bike at 12, you weren't born into cycling in Belgium, you're not going to make it professional. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have wasted so many years trying to make it.
It turns out those years weren't wasted. How old were you when you started racing? And can you remember your first race?
Yeah, I mean, I was racing my marathon mountain bike stuff. Yeah, basically from 19. But my first proper road race was probably New South Wales State Champs around the Mittagong circuit, as an under 23. I think I was last year under 23. Promptly DNF'd that race. And yeah, probably my first road race in the NRS series was King Valley that same year. So yeah, that was probably back in 2017, maybe. Yeah, 2017. Long time ago now.
So you've probably got more in common with Primoz Roglic than you do with Tadej Pogacar, because Tadej had won a Grand Tour, a Tour de France, by the time before you'd even ridden your first road race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of guys that try and come into the sport at a later age is there's not so many, but the ones that do stick around seem to be quite successful. Hopefully, I get a bit more success like Primoz has. But yeah, the young guns, it's definitely trending more and more towards, we're going to recruit straight out of juniors. You've got guys before the under 23s have finished completing Grand Tours, podiuming Grand Tours. So yeah, getting a look in and getting your feet firmly planted on the floor in Australia at the age of 17, 18 is looking like it's more and more, like necessary before making the step over to Europe.
What did you do when you were 14, 15, 16? Because you can't sit on the couch and then start riding mountain bikes at 19 and have an engine. We've spoken to Grace Brown, Olympic Games gold medalist, and she came from middle distance running. So she was already a trained athlete before she started cycling.
what did I do apart from not go to school? I played cricket, but I wasn't really good at anything in cricket. I was sort of a mediocre batter. I was better at bowling, basically a fieldsman at cricket. And I played winger in rugby union at high school level. But basically, I got past the ball 4 times and got tackled every time. So yeah, I wasn't that sporting inclined. Never ran a cross country to completion. I think my best result in the beep test was like 12. So yeah, not actually that sporting inclined or skilled inclined, that is. But yeah, it was just an active kid, I guess.
Well, you've got something in common there with Cadell. He played cricket as a kid. And you've got something in common with Chris Froome. He played rugby union as a kid as well. And it's fair to say that you and Froome, you don't exactly have the body type for rugby.
Yeah, yeah. I was the youngest in my age as well, so
That doesn't help.
That doesn't help either.
So at what point, if you start racing mountain bikes in Duro level at 19 years of age, at what point did you think, actually, I might be all right at this? And where does the dream to make it to the top of world cycling get started?
So you'll laugh at this, but road cycling was cheaper than mountain biking, as I found out. The the amount of tires that I would blow through just flats or just the general upkeep and maintenance of a mountain bike, because you're riding it off road. You have accidents, but also you ride through mud and grit and grime, and you just destroy drivetrains. And it was much easier to replace a 105 chain on a road bike than it was to replace a double X one by chain on a mountain bike. So expense, and I was on an office works casual salary. So yeah,
So road cycling is the benefactor of budget restrictions.
budget restrictions. Yes. Obviously different levels. I think my first road bike was a Specialized Alley back when they still had the standard geometry, before they went to that new aero design, and it's like $1,100. So I think I might have did my state champs on that.
Oh wow! So was there one
So
result there early on the road where you thought, "This is it. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to chase it."
I can tell you the exact moment that happened. It was New Zealand Cycle Classic. As a team, my old amateur team that then turned continental, Nero Cycling, was invited over to New Zealand, and that New Zealand Cycle Classic in Cambridge, we ended up I ended up coming third overall and second on a stage, in that race, and that week that I spent in New Zealand was just, I was hooked, line, and sinker. And yeah, really was like, I'm gonna give this everything I've got, and yeah, really pursue this.
I think the New Zealand Cycle Classic is the last stage race that Ben O'Connor has actually won. You're in good company getting a solid result at that race. For this series, for the ProVelo Super Series, having a good team around them is going to be really important. How crucial was the Nero squad to you?
Yeah, I mean, incredibly crucial. Like that entire last stage, I think it was like 150 k's of essentially flat, dead rolling roads that we had to control. 4 or 5 guys trying to take my podium spot from me. There, so it was really crucial, and learning from some of the guys that had more experience in the squad, and yeah, that was really important. But to have a good team in road racing, it's we've got a really weird sport where you've got individual winners, but it's a team race. So yeah, one person gets the glory, but without the team, there's really nothing on offer.
Yet all the people behind the team, they got a close look at you, so they saw what you were capable of. To me, they became your best publicity agents of all time. They were telling anybody that they could find to listen, you've got to give this guy an opportunity.
Yeah, well, yeah, the people you've got to talk to are over in Europe, aren't they?
That's true. And you rode the Sun Tour, and I can remember a stage that went up Falls Creek, and you're right there in the mix, and there was the Jayco team was there, Sky team was there. Did you see that as a really big chance to prove yourself and showcase yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. That year, yeah, that was all in for Sun Tour. I was sort of disheartened the year before by watching Freeburg win the national champs and still not get a look in at a World Tour gig. So I was like, okay, well, let's try Sun Tour. I'm going to try all in for Sun Tour and see if I can get a look in at a World Tour or a Pro Conti squad overseas. So yeah, prepped my entire summer around that, riding inside for a lot of it because of Australian bushfires. And having an air purifier in my living room for probably 4 or 5 weeks in the Australian summer to try and prep for that. But yeah, to get noticed, I think there was 4 or 5 professional teams at that race, and hoping one of them would take note. And yeah, then it turned out that it was the end of the year that really gave me the shot.
And then that was the Zwift Academy. So we've gone into lockdown. I can imagine at this point you're on a really tight timeline. And I used to refer to it as the Vine Show because it was you and your wife. It was a joint effort with you and Bree. And that total commitment from the two of you. Did you see the Zwift Academy as the final shot?
Yeah, absolutely. It was all in for that. We decided that look, there's no job opportunities, there's no real point starting an apprenticeship or anything like that right now. We're still in lockdown, and the next 2 years are very uncertain. But yeah, we went full, team buying together in the living room to try and do the Zwift Academy because Zwift was really the only thing that was on offer. Like all the pros were doing it overseas as well. And yeah, once you take away the cheating factor, and you do your weigh-ins and make sure your equipment's all calibrated, at least you go to show off an engine. And I also had the amateur road cycling on the Palmares as well to show that yeah, I can actually race outside as well. So yeah, that was all in for that, and luckily enough, I was able to show the Alpecin team that I was worth taking a shot at.
What was it like when you came together as the finalists and you knew who your competition was and you're down to the last part, the last hurdle to get there?
Um, yeah, I guess it was a culmination of my cycling over the last 3 or 4 years to try and make a professional gig out of something that you know lots and lots of people had told me I was too late for. And lots and lots of people were were still thinking that the Zwift Academy wasn't really legitimate. And yeah, I was just very very nervous and trying to work out that okay, if this does go ahead, where am I actually going to live?
Yeah, sometimes what if this is successful? What do I do next? So for
Yeah.
whoever wins this series, they get an opportunity to be a stagiaire with the Jayco Alula team or the Live Alula Jayco team. You've been through that experience of going to the training camps and so on. It's going to be slightly different for this group. What was it like for you when you first went and met the team? And it's a team that you went to with the best cyclocross riders in the world. And here's this guy who rides indoors. It must have been hard for you initially to go into that environment.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think they sort of didn't quite because I was also the first year with Alpecin, so I don't think they quite knew what to do with me. Luckily enough, they gave me my own opportunities to show off my talent in Tour of Turkey, and then gave me a shot at my first Grand Tour in my first World Tour race in the August of that very same year. Um, so yeah, learning fast, learning quick. I think I was helping do lead outs for Jasper Philipsen in my very first race. Um, so yeah, it's I think everyone sort of had a slight skepticism, but they at least they didn't they still expected me to do a job. So um, that was good. At least I was able to learn quick and get given the exposure to a bunch of different roles all in my first 8 days of racing as well.
Well, as one of the country's best climbers, I reckon you'd be right to be nervous being told that you need to help in the lead out with Jasper Philipsen.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I think in that same race we had we're going up against lead out trains for like Greifel, and a quick step a quick step squad led by Mark Cavendish. So yeah, it was pretty dicey. But I mean, helping in the lead out. I mean, I think I disappeared with 3 or 4 Ks to go. So it
You're off the
wasn't
hook.
too scary.
You're off the hook. And then what about that debut at the Volta de España? I mean, that was huge.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I'd raced more than 8 days in a row, and yeah, first World Tour race as well. It was a lot of firsts, and yeah, an incredible experience. I think yeah, best result in the race was a third in the stage. But yeah, definitely a race that will be forever one of the races that I'll forever remember. That's for sure.
I thought that it was a performance by you in that Volta that really validated the Zwift Academy and had other teams then looking at it a lot more closely because you did perform so well, despite not winning a stage, but you came back and did that later on.
Yeah. I mean, I think the getting through that race and everything was probably a validation. But I'd probably say that Tour of Norway the following year was sort of a confirmation of the Watts are the Watts. You know, Remco ended up winning the overall of Tour of Norway, but myself and him did like ridiculous numbers on the big climb of that day. Not to mention there were crosswind sections and there were splits, and you had to make all of those to maintain GC. But yeah, I'd say that was a key part of my development and my acknowledgement to myself, even that okay, you're good enough to race with the guys, the best at this level. So yeah, take that confidence into the next Volta, and sure enough, 2 stage wins were on the cards.
Do you think that I'll get to the Volta stage, and particularly the first one, in a moment? Do you think, though, that at the Tour of Norway, I certainly do, that it wasn't so much the power output that you displayed, it was the ability to race. It was the art of racing more so than the physical prowess of racing, dealing with the crosswinds and the tough conditions?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, there was some other guys that got caught out in those crosswinds and would go on to lose 4 or 5 minutes and not be even relevant on GC. So you're absolutely right there. And once again, that part was probably completely down to my team. Being Belgian races in classics, they were all over the wing conditions and moving me around, telling me when to be in the right position, and helping me into the right spots, so that when the hard stuff hit, I could show my legs.
Now, I want to go to that first stage victory in the Volta de España that nobody actually saw. We only knew that you'd won the stage because the clock had started ticking with you having gone across the finish line because it was completely shrouded in mist. It was such a dramatic win.
Yeah. I'm so disappointed by that because I had such a nice uh, post up, and looking direct at the camera, but obviously they were like, "Nah, can't see him well enough," so we just cut to a high angle shot of the finish line. But yeah, that was I think the whole way up, even in the last 500 meters, I was so sure that someone was going to come past me, but because you never trust the radio times. So yeah, that was nervous for everyone.
It's a long way from a guy that made the decision to ride on the road because it was cheaper than racing mountain bikes. Did you have a moment after that stage to reflect on the journey?
Not really. I guess it was sort of like, yes, I've finally got my professional win. Um, and then immediately turned to, okay, when's the next opportunity? I don't think I really stopped to go, wow. I mean, I think definitely that came later in my career. I think that really settled in when I came back to Australia for the first time in 2 years, at the end of that 2022 season. and started riding home roads again. And sort of just thinking to myself, wow, I've just spent 2 years riding my bike professionally in Europe, and now I'm back home, and I'm doing the same loops that I did as an amateur, and the same climbs, and just having a completely different perspective on life. That's when I really sort of reflected.
Yeah, and it's good to take those moments to reflect, because at that Vuelta, you didn't wait long to pick up your next stage victory. What about then making the transition going across the UAE Team Emirates? So it's the biggest team in the world with the biggest star of the sport in the world. That's a huge move by you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm looking back on it. It seems like it doesn't make sense, but the more and more I've experienced the team, it's definitely paid out to be one of the best decisions. I've seen guys sign less money to stay at teams they're really enjoying, and the mental side of this sport, like, you spend so many hours riding your bicycle that if you're not happy, then no amount of money can make up for that mental dissatisfaction side. So um, as long as you're really enjoying the sport and you're really enjoying the team and the culture and the management, everything about it, then the people you're working with, that's what keeps you in the sport for the long run. That's for sure.
Oh, they must have been hugely supportive this year. This was a horrible year for you to get things started. Became a brilliant year later on, particularly become a father for the first time. How hard was it getting back to racing after the horrible crash in April?
Yeah, I guess it was one of those things where it started off really slow. I mean, 6 weeks horizontal, not doing any exercise at all. Quickly revolved around into, okay, we'll try and do 5 hours this week on the trainer. All right, we'll try and do 6 hours, 7 hours on the trainer with 2 hours outside going uphill. All right, we'll try and do, the next step, the next step, the next step, until, we were 2 weeks out from Volta Burgos, doing an altitude camp in Andorra, and we were, I think, 14 weeks post crash. I'd done countless hours, probably 40 hours of therapy, hyperbaric chambers, you name it, to try and recover as quick as possible. Not to mention the own personal physio stuff that I was doing at home to loosen up all the muscles and the joints and stuff. And then we arrived at Burgos, and I think the thing that took my mind off the fact that I was racing again for the first time was I was also terrified that my wife was going to go into labor at any moment, because she was 38 weeks pregnant at the time. So I was on like complete standby that, okay, at any moment she could pop. So it's like, if the race only went for 3 days, well, the race only went for 3 days. I'd be in the car heading back as quick as possible.
So there could have been visions of you abandoning the race mid-stage to go to the birth of your first child.
Yeah. I think the team was aware that that's how committed I was, but that's how committed I was to being there for his birth. So yeah, I mean, that was something that I just took my mind off racing for the first time, until the actual racing started, and then it was a pretty steep learning curve once again back into the sport, as if I hadn't raced before, because I think it was 4 months between races, and I've never gone 4 months between races. It's, you finish the Italian races in not the middle of October, and then you're starting nationals or down under in January. That's only 3 months. So it was a long time between being in Peloton.
Yeah, and the difference in those 3 months, everybody else has been out of the peloton as well. So it's quite different to having 4 months out and everybody else has been in it. So then if
Mm.
you go to that moment when you're taking the polka dot jersey at the Vuelta of Spania, and then cast your mind back to the guy that was doing 5 hours on the home trainer. That guy doing 5 hours on the home trainer wouldn't have believed you.
No, absolutely not. No, completely surreal experience, especially coming so close to winning it 2 years before. And yeah, just an achievement, but in something that, if you told me that you're going to be one of the best climbers in a Grand Tour, 3 or 4 years prior, I would have laughed at you completely. Like, that's reserved for, guys like Froome, guys like Bernal, guys like, Sepkus. And to be able to pull on that jersey, that's something that I'll be able to frame and put on my wall for the rest of my life. That's for sure.
So given you're a late starter to the sport, there's going to be a 23-year-old who has started cycling late. They're in the ProVelo Super League, and they've got dreams of getting into the position that you are. What advice would you give them?
Well, you've only got 2 months or something to get going, so I don't know. A lot of my advice can be applicable here, but yeah, I just say that I'd obviously really focus and work hard on being ready, because once you get given that contract, you want to try and hit the ground running and get as many results or as much learning under your belt as possible, as quick as possible, and don't base your entire ethos and outlook on riding around winning. There are a lot of guys that, because they do not stand on the top step of a podium in their first 4 days of racing, get really depressed and don't want to ride their bikes anymore. And that's just not it. The amount of people that win a bike race in this sport is very few, and you're racing against 180 guys who are all equally as good as you, some that are far, far better. And if you base your entire happiness and outlook on cycling around winning bike races, then you're not going to be in the sport for very long. And you should really just enjoy racing, enjoying being part of the sport. And I think that's the key to a happy and a successful career.
I imagine then your advice would be very similar to the 17-year-old or the 18-year-old who is pretty early on in the journey, but they're looking at people like Torres signing at 19 years of age and thinking, oh, I need to get there now. But not everybody's on the same timeline.
Absolutely. I mean, you're completely right. And the other thing is, these guys signing at 19, they are already in the environment in Europe. They're not like us who have to shift our entire lives across the world. A lot of them still live at home. So there's no disruption in their home life. There's no disruption in their friend circles or their group of mates. Their girlfriends are still just down the road. So that support structure is not something they have to rebuild overseas either. And I mean, I don't think we will see the effects of signing such young guys for another 5 or 6 years. I think the days of the 41-year-old Valverde, the 38-year-old or 39-year-old Philippe Gilbert, I think they're completely over. I don't see guys going from 19 all the way through to 38 in the sport that we have now. It's far, far more dangerous. It's far, far more risky. It's far, far more mentally challenging. To be able to do that for 18 seasons back to back to back, I think it's very difficult. I mean, if I'm able to last for 10 seasons, then I'll be very, very happy.
I reckon you've definitely got 10 seasons in you. And I've also heard some stories. I bumped into a couple from Canberra over the weekend up at the Tour of Bright, and they were telling me about a group of cyclists that you've been taking out in Canberra. So it's pretty clear that you're wanting to have a really positive influence on the next group of riders coming through?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a kids junior ride coming up in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, there's a couple of things that we're going to do with the local club at the Christmas crits later in the month. So keep your ears out for that if you're in the Canberra area and you want to buy some raffle tickets. There might be some cool prizes there. But yeah, I'm just trying to give as much back to the cycling community here in Canberra as possible, because you know, even till basically the day that I left, I was trying to win club races and do my bit in the club criterium series as well. So yeah, to try and give back to that club and the community, it's definitely, I definitely don't want to lift up the ladder as after I've climbed up. I want to try and promote as much as I can for people trying to enter the sport, people trying to come over to Europe, the people that are trying to just get fit and enjoy cycling. I think it's really important that we try and promote that culture in Australia.
Well, you're going to have to keep us posted on the work that you're doing in that space so we can share it and promote it as well. Jay, thanks for your time and good luck for the next. You're going to have a 10+ year career. Good luck for what's to come next.
Awesome. Thanks, Matty.